All right. Can you all hear me? All right. Welcome to the November 15th, 2023 meeting of the Urban Design Commission. My name is Tyler Holmes and I'm the chair of the commission. When called on, applicants and speakers will come to the front to the podium to speak. Only one person at a time should come to the podium. Please do not approach the podium until it has been vacated by the previous speaker. Please speak into the microphone and identify yourself and provide your address for the record when you begin speaking. Address your comments, questions, and testimony to the commission. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. It is unnecessary to repeat testimony previously given by others. Citizens may address the commission on agenda items by responding to chair's call for speakers during the discussion on each item and signing the speaker's log at the podium. All comments must be relevant to the item. The chair or presiding officer may, in his or her discretion, prohibit a person from addressing the committee and/or remove the person from the council chambers. If that person commits any disorderly or disruptive behavior, please see the agenda for more information about these requirements. If you parked in the Sheridan Walker parking garage north of John Rex Elementary School or the Arts District parking garage immediately south of City Hall, staff can provide you a validation ticket for you. The agenda and documents are located at okc.prime.gov. The agenda and documents are located at okc.primegov.com/public/portal. You will then select the Urban Design Commission meeting, then click on an agenda item, and the relevant documents will come up below the item. Keith, will you please present roll call?
Holmes?
Here?
Blatt?
Here.
Zhao? Zhao? Dixon Oso?
Here.
Peoples?
Here.
We have quorum.
All right. Okay. Now we will go into the approval of last month's minutes. Let everyone take a minute to take a look, and if we have a motion and a second, please present it when you're ready.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Do we have a second? Nope. Okay. All right, it has been approved. Has it? Okay.
Keith, did that go?
Oh. Haven't seen it yet.
What was your vote?
Oh, I see.
We can just do a voice vote. Count your vote, please.
All right, it is passed. Okay, today we have no cases withdrawn, no continuances, and we have one item on the consent docket. Is anyone on this, like, one thing we mentioned, I know Shannon, you're here, do we have anything to be mentioned on this, or do we want to vote for approval, or any motion?
Make a motion to approve the consent docket.
Okay, second by Nathan. Second by Ashley. Okay, let's vote. All right, the consent docket is passed. We have nothing on the agenda for individual consideration. Looks like we have a SPUD under other business, so it's SPUD 1574 at 15th Southwest 25th Street. Staff, do you have anything?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a SPUD proposal
for a property at 15 Southwest 25th Street in Capitol Hill. Background on this is a metal plating facility that's been in operation for probably 40 or 50 years at this location. April of last year, they had a fire at the site, and it destroyed one of the buildings. They came in earlier this year to process a certificate of approval for a new replacement building, but because of the non-conforming use regulations that apply in the general zoning code, you can't rebuild a building and occupy it with a use that's not permitted by the zoning district, which we have here is CCBD, Central Business District, and that sets the use parameters for the site currently. So it's been a non-conforming use for a number of years, and the only way to fix that and allow a new building to be built for the same use is to do a rezone. They could have done an I-2 or an I-1, but they have other issues associated with the development of the site that they wanted to address through a SPUD, and therefore what you see before you today is a master design statement that includes a variety of issues with respect to the uses that are permitted in the design standards and development regulations that would apply to any new use on the site. We've identified for you in the staff report a couple of provisions that were not addressed in the SPUD document that are regulatory provisions of the code. One is the inclusion of a ADA parking stall in the parking lot. They've given us a conceptual parking layout plan, Exhibit D, to the document, but it doesn't include the ADA parking stall that's required. And so we've made the recommendation that should the commission wish to forward a recommendation of approval to the Board of Adjustment on this case, that it include a condition of approval that the ADA stall be added to that exhibit. Secondarily, there's a provision in the existing zoning code for parking lot landscaping that applies to parking lots when they abut the public right-of-way. The westerly parking lot in this proposed development, or excuse me, existing, but they're going to rebuild it, at least one of the buildings, is that it abuts, the westerly parking lot abuts the street directly. And they have a concrete area there between the sidewalk and the edge of the parking lot that we think per code should be landscaped to screen the parked vehicles, and that's what the provision is for. So we're recommending that to the commission that if you choose to recommend approval of the SPUD to the Planning Commission, that you would include a condition of approval that requires that landscaping of that location. And that's only for the western parking lot, not the eastern, because in the eastern, we've made a distinction that the parking in that particular area is well back away from the street and doesn't really need the screening. So, additionally, there are, I believe, 3 provisions that relate to design guidelines. The first 2 relate to architecture. There's a lot of language in the staff report under items 2A and 2B with respect to the language that should appear in the architecture section of the master design statement. They have proposed to use a standard set of boilerplate language that typically goes through the Planning Commission fairly well. However, at the same time, does not make any reference to the certificate of approval process that would apply to this project if the SPUD were approved, and it doesn't recognize the fact that it still has to go through a CA process. And we've added language in our recommendation that language should be added. And secondarily, with respect to the architecture, you'll notice in the permitted uses section of the MDS, there are several uses proposed under the SPUD that are not part and parcel of what's on the site today or have nothing to do with it. And typically that's done with the SPUD so that in the future, if the metal plating business doesn't make any sense at that location anymore, they go out of business or whatever, that they would have the flexibility to change over to new, redevelop the site with new uses without having to come back through and do a new SPUD. By the same token, we feel that it's important that the architectural standards have that same type of flexibility written into them. So from that standpoint, we feel it's appropriate in this case to allow the R-metal panel siding on these buildings. It's what they're all built out of there. They've had variances for it from previous approvals by this commission. One way to avoid the variance is to write it into your architectural standards, and we fully support the inclusion of that building material for any new buildings that are built for this use. However, in the future, if this business were to go out of business or for whatever reason, and they choose to do some of these new uses that are listed as permitted uses in the SPUD, that is one material that we do not think should be allowed for those new uses that are not light industrial. And the reason for that is because metal siding is specifically listed as a prohibited material in the Urban Design Overlay District. So we're willing to, I guess, abide by that use or that building material at this point in time for this use, but we feel that the master design statement should include provisions in it that acknowledge the fact that when this use is no longer here and they choose to do new uses, that particular building material should not be included in the list of materials that are allowed. And then finally, we have a section in here about dumpster enclosures. Right now, there's a dumpster on the site. It sits in the parking lot in the easterly part of the site. It's not in an enclosure, and it's not screened. We've had some indication from the applicant that they prefer to keep things as they are because that's the way they've been. It is a good distance away from the street on Southwest 25th Street. But it is visible if there are no cars parked in that particular parking area, and accordingly, we feel it's appropriate that it be screened in accordance with the typical standards for a dumpster. So there's 5 basic provisions of the master design statement that we've identified that we feel need to be revised or modified in your recommendation to the Planning Commission on this SPUD. We've outlined those for you under the staff recommendation part of the staff report. And that concludes our presentation. We're prepared to respond to any questions the commission may have.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. So as staff said, this is a use that has been there for in excess of 40 years. Because of a fire, staff has deemed it legally non-conforming. So as a legally non-conforming use, once it's destroyed by more than 50%, you lose that status. And so we have other buildings that are still there on site and operational, but we can't pull a building permit to allow this building to be rebuilt, except for going through this process. And so in terms of the conditions that staff has, I will tell you we agree with all of them except for B. So we agree with the ADA piece. We agree with the language as it relates to architectural. If it's no longer developed as this industrial use, we don't care. Somebody would have to come back before you and meet those requirements. So as long as we can use the R panel for our use, that gets us where we need to be. We're happy to enclose the dumpster. And then finally, we can revise the parking. Now, the issue with the landscaping is it would require us to remove a substantial amount of concrete. It has been like this for many, many years. We're hoping that by our willingness to agree to all of the other things, that some leniency would be given to this property owner who's been through a fairly, expensive problem to go fix this thing that he's had in operation for over 40 years. So we agree with all of those, except we would ask to strike B.
Are you thinking that this request for striking will be for the current use, or is it differentiated when it goes to future uses? So later on in the language.
Sure. So that's a great point.
So if it's used as it is today, then you would be willing to say, if there is a change of use, then all of the original landscaping components would be able to be enforced.
Yeah, if there's a change of use, we'd have to bring the site up to meet the landscaping code.
Okay, that was my main question.
I mean, when it comes to things like this, in my opinion, like when it comes to item B, I feel like could be a small submission that would actually enhance the area and be kind of what is consistent with Urban Design Commission. So if you make one exception, then others get exceptions as well. So I could see a positive impact by providing that. That's my 2 cents.
Say that one more time.
I could see a positive impact by providing that, and since being it's a requirement to the Urban Design Commission, I kind of would want it to stay that way, just to add some form of landscaping to beautify the area. But
What does the landscape fall under? Is it ordinance? Is it regulation? Is it guideline? What does it fall under, the specific chapter and verse that we're talking about for the perimeter landscaping? What is that?
It's in the landscape code.
It's code item.
Yeah, it's code. But that's why they typically do spuds.
Right.
I think in this shot here in the upper left, I think you can see the concrete area maybe they're talking about having to remove. I'm not sure how big the area it is right now, but to meet the landscape code, we're only looking for an area that's 3 feet deep from the sidewalk and the depth of a parking stall. So it's about 54 square feet of concrete they'd have to remove to meet the standard. But compromise position would be to just tie that requirement to any future redevelopment, so.
Because essentially that's what we're doing with respect to the buildings, is we're allowing
Right.
existing non-compliant to become new non-compliant as long as it keeps with the.
Right.
So they can build new and be non-compliant as long as they keep with what's there currently.
Yes.
So we're making a concession on that
Yep.
behalf.
Right.
And in line with that, we can make the concession so that it stays as is, not changed.
Right,
But the minute that it changes,
correct,
then they have to bring it up to.
right.
And due to the fact that we had a fire.
You just need to make sure you make that part of your motion.
Okay.
any other comments or any motions?
I'll go ahead and recommend approval of the application to the Planning Commission for a request to rezone from C CBD Central Business District to Simplified Planned Unit Development, SPUD 1574, on the basis that the project meets the regulations and guidelines of the Urban Design Overlay District zoning ordinance as referenced in section C and D of the staff report, with the conditions that A, the applicant shall revise Exhibit D, conceptual parking lot, to include the one required ADA parking stall. B, the applicant shall revise section 1.7 landscaping to read as follows. In the event that a new structure is built, all structures built within SPUD shall be subject to review of the urban design. No, I'm trying to get to a point.
No, because there could be a
Yeah.
new structure built with the current use.
Yeah.
And
So let me try to just, I'll paraphrase and then you
Okay.
guys can guide me in. In the event that a new structure is built per the, for a use other than the current existing use
or light industrial use.
or light industrial use, then the landscaping shall be permitted to remain and deemed to conform to the applicable Oklahoma City Municipal Code regulation. If a new structure is built that is a different use, then the existing landscaping shall be permitted to remain and deemed to conform to the applicable Oklahoma City Municipal Code regulation, except that the parking lot perimeter landscaping in accordance with section 59-11-250.E.1A1 shall be required at the westerly parking lot. And C, that the applicant shall revise section 11.1 or 2.1 architecture to be revised to read as follows. All buildings constructed within this SPUD shall be subject to the review and approval of a certificate of approval in accordance with the applicable urban design regulations and guidelines. The existing structures shall be permitted to remain as deemed to conform to all applicable regulations. In the event that a new structure is built, all structures built within the SPUD shall be subject to the review and approval of a certificate of approval, subject to the applicable urban design regulations and guidelines, with the exception that metal R-panel siding shall be permitted for any buildings associated with the current light industrial use. Should this site be redeveloped in the future into any of the non-industrial uses as permitted by the SPUD, the use of metal R-panel siding shall not be permitted. D, the applicant shall revise section 2.5 dumpsters to read as follows. The existing dumpster shall be placed within a site-proof screen, trash enclosure with solid gates to enclose the front. Should this site be redeveloped in the future to any of the non-industrial uses permitted by this SPUD, all said dumpsters shall be located within trash enclosures that shall be site-proof screened from view from the public streets in accordance with section 59-13700.5.1. And E, the applicant shall revise Exhibit D, conceptual parking layout to accurately depict the location of the existing dumpster and its required enclosure, and eliminate any parking stalls that occupy the same area. Did I?
One, I hope you guys get paid more than all the other boards and commissions because they just say subject to the conditions. Here's my question. On B, what if we just kept the language as is? And you see the underlined language, which is representing what staff is suggesting to add. So we say, starting at the second line, conform to the applicable Oklahoma City Municipal Code regulation, except that landscaping in accordance with section, et cetera, shall be required with any change of use.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
We good to make a motion?
So I think Tony
Or-
just amended his motion.
I amend
Okay,
my
that is-
motion as such to
Second is
reflect.
done. Okay. Seconds by Lee.
I wish you would have jumped in earlier.
Well, I didn't. You were in such flow. I didn't want to stop you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the admin approval report here on communications. Anyone have any questions on this? No need for approval, but. Okay. Any comments from the planning staff?
Not at this time.
Okay. Any comments from commission members? All right. The next meeting date is Wednesday, December 2nd. See y'all there. December 20th, 2023. All right. Motion or